Welcome back to AnyQuest tutorial videos, where today we're going to be discussing accessing JSON lists. So with that, there's two types of ways we could really think about this, and depending on what flow you want, you can go one way or the other, but there's creating JSON lists with attributes. So this is more just knowing how many, for this instance, companies, right? So how many companies? So we want 3 companies, and we want to do separate research on each of those companies. Creating a JSON list with a list of attributes, each company being an attribute, would be a good way of doing this. But let's say then we don't really know how many companies are going to be coming in, right? We don't know the exact number. So if we come down here, we would set up the JSON object, creating a list of JSON objects, right? So for each company would have its own JSON object. And this would run for as many different companies that there were. And we'll see the output of that in a sec, but let's focus on this top one first. The other thing to note here would be that if we're merging all of this research together, right, doing it this way with the merged activity, we'd actually be able to decide the order in which these companies are put out on that final merge activity, whereas this one is going to be more random, right? So back to the example. So with this, with accessing the JSON object, right? So we're going to set it up with the object title, which was companies dot company one, which if we look back, that was our first attribute, right? So company one, and then research on the second one, company two, and same thing with the third one, right? So you'll do dollar dot the title and then what the attribute is. Now, if we're doing 2 companies from the list of attributes, you want to do dot and then in square brackets the attributes in double quotations and separate by a comma. So a little bit more complex if you want to bring in those first 2 companies, right? But still, this would work for 3, 4, 5, however many you want to bring into that one activity. And then to get all of the companies from that list, you actually don't have to map anything, because that will just bring in that entire JSON object with all the attributes. Right, so then down here, we'll look at generate 6. So this is set up a little bit differently than Gen 1. This one, you would list it out, or I'd listed out all of the companies, right? Or each company, 1, 2, and 3, because we're taking the top 3 companies, right? We made that specific. Here, we're just saying top companies, right? So it could be 5, it could be 10. We don't know how many it's going to return. So for this, we created the list object. So that's done with these square brackets here. And it'll just repeat this for however many companies that it goes out and gets, right? And then to pass that, all we're going to do is $.companies. And if you remember, that was the object title, and all of the objects will be underneath it, all contained within companies. So that's why when we're doing the research on all companies, it'll be $. That object title. And that'll allow generate 5 to run and do research on all of those companies, and I'll just keep doing it for each one. So what we'll see is just a bunch of generate 5 activities in the activities tab when we run this. So might as well let's give this a run and just check out what it does. So we'll just look at the automotive industry. Give that a run. Okay. Come into activities. So we'll see, as I was discussing before, you'll see all these generate fives running, the one for each company. But let's first come down here and we'll go into Gen 1. So as we can see, it went and got the top 3 companies based on revenue, Toyota, Volkswagen, and Daimler. And then that was then gone into research on each individual company, 7, 3, and 4. We'll come back down. And so we see Toyota, Daimler, and Volkswagen all each have their own individual activity. And then we have research on the first 2 companies and generate 8. So let's see, those first 2 companies were Toyota and Volkswagen, generate 8. So you have Toyota, Volkswagen, some comparative insights, which I didn't ask for, but honestly, that's pretty good. And then generate 9 was all 3 companies, right? So we'll see we have the research on all 3, including a little summary. And then the list of JSON objects, right? This is what it'll look like. So with generate 6, it went out and got, let's see, 10, the top 10 companies. And then for each of those companies, see, these are all Gen 5, is now done research on each individual company, and it's ran it for each one of those companies. So that's a bit about accessing JSON lists and just writing in the mapping and how to do it individually, or if you don't know the list size, how to map and get all of those companies, all research for those companies. And that'll conclude this video on accessing JSON lists. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.